This is Kol Yisrael, the Voice of Israel, broadcasting from Jerusalem. Wednesday, June 7th, 1967, 4:30 p.m.
אנחנו יושבים על הרכב ועוד מעט אנחנו נותנים להיכנס אליה. העיר העתיקה של ירושלים, שמאז כל הדורות חולמים עליה ושואפים אליה. אנחנו נהיה הראשונים להיכנס אליה. לנוע אל השער.
אנחנו הולכים ומעמיקים לתוך העיר העתיקה.
הר הבית בידינו, כאן תמיד, הר הבית בידינו.
The military spokesman announces, this morning the Israel Defense Forces penetrated the old city of Jerusalem.
The Temple Mount is an important religious site for Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. At the center of the site lies the Dome of the Rock. Adjacent to it is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which has a massive prayer hall with enough space to accommodate about 5,000 worshippers. On the western side of the Temple Mount is the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall. While Jews refer to it as the Temple Mount, Muslims refer to it as the Haram al-Sharif, or Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, or simply Al-Aqsa. Judaism teaches that the Temple Mount is where the world began. It teaches that this is where God asked Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. It teaches that this is where Solomon and Herod's temple stood. It also teaches that this is where the third temple will someday be built. This site is held as the holiest site in Judaism, more holy than the Western Wailing Wall. Muslims believe that the Dome of the Rock lies where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven on his horse, Barak. This makes it the third holiest site in Islam, after Mecca and Medina. Christians consider the Temple Mount to be an important site due to its significance in the Old Testament, and because Jesus would have spent time there. Additionally, Christians believe that the Temple Mount plays a crucial role in Bible prophecy. On June 7, 1967, Israeli forces gained control of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount complex after a 6-day war with Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. This was a significant event because Jerusalem had been under Muslim rule since 1187, when the Arabs took it back from the Crusaders.
The Jews recaptured the Temple Mount in the 1967 Six-Day War. However, at that time, they wanted to curry favor with the international community, with the United Nations, so they struck a deal with Jordan that Jordan would send the religious Waqf, which is the Muslim clergy, there to oversee the Temple Mount.
Israeli Prime Minister Levi Eshkol made the decision to return the authority of the Temple Mount back to the Jordanian Muslim Waqf, fearing that any other decision could lead to retaliation and the start of a holy war. As per the agreement, the Waqf would continue to administer the site. However, Jews would only be allowed to enter as tourists and would not be permitted to pray there. Ultimately, they reformulated the status quo, which gave administrative control of the Temple Mount to the Muslims under Israeli supervision. Ever since this decision, tensions on the Temple Mount have been ongoing, and control of that site by the Waqf is becoming more and more symbolic, because the Israeli occupation controls the gates of the Al-Aqsa compound and effectively decides who enters and who doesn't. The Second Palestinian Intifada began after then Israeli opposition leader Ariel Sharon sparked the uprising when he stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in occupied East Jerusalem with more than 1,000 heavily armed police and soldiers on September 28, 2000. and what ensued was weeks of fighting between Palestinians and the Israeli military. Overall, the Second Intifada was more than 4 years of intense violence, killing at least 3,000 Palestinians and 1,000 Israelis. The conflict encouraged Israel to build a separation wall in the West Bank, dubbed by Palestinians as the Apartheid Wall. And since then, violence at the Al-Aqsa has been a common occurrence.
So we have another session of violence here, right in front of the Al-Aqsa compound.
Violence at the holy site was one of the flashpoints that led to the 11-day conflict.
This is such a sensitive religious site, isn't it?
Israeli forces have stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque and fired rubber-coated bullets and stun grenades during Ramadan prayers.
Tonight, a frenzy of violence at one of Jerusalem's holiest sites, threatening to ignite the region. Video showing Israeli riot police storming the Al-Aqsa Mosque, beating people inside with guns and nightsticks. Palestinians responding by shooting fireworks inside the religious compound.
And never have we seen the kind of violence inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Again, unprecedented images seen inside what is the third holiest site of Islam.
An Israeli police raid on Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque has sparked fury among Palestinians and condemnation across the Arab world, as well as cross-border strikes in Gaza and fears of yet another escalation.
When the smoke from the violence cleared, hundreds of Palestinians had been arrested, some zip-tied on the mosque floor.
These sorts of scenes have been seen before in the Al-Aqsa compound.
هذه صورة جنود الاحتلال الصهيوني وهم يدخلون المصلى القبلي. هذه الصورة ممنوع أن تتكرر. هذه الصورة تعني معنى واحد، أن العدو يريد أن يحول هذه الحرب وهذه المعركة إلى معركة دينية. الأقصى والقدس والمساس بالأقصى والقدس يعني حرباً إقليمية دينية. ونحن عند مقدساتنا وديننا لن نبخل بشيء.
The violence erupted at a sensitive time, on the eve of the Jewish Passover and in the middle of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan.
The next day, Israeli police cleared the way for Jewish worshippers to enter the Haram al-Sharif compound and again clashed with Muslim worshippers.
A growing movement of Jewish extremists is demanding to perform prayers here. That could upend the status quo.
Now, there are sirens going off in southern Israel, which suggests that those Palestinians in Gaza are firing back. And the fear here is that what started in Jerusalem spread to Lebanon and now be spreading further into Gaza.
We witness at least 2 men praying as police stand by.
Now, under the current status quo, Jews are allowed to go and visit the Temple Mount, but are forbidden from praying. Now, this also dates back until 1967, when they did sign an order to allow Jordanian administration of the entire compound. But they do that in coordination, as Ariel mentioned, with the Israeli police. And a lot of Jewish leaders were concerned about allowing any Jews to go up there for concern of stepping on what they call the ground of the Holy of Holies, not knowing exactly where the destruction of the first and second temple was. And so it's only been recently that Jews have been allowed to go up there. But it does seem like it's a break in the status quo because of the fact that Jews are going up there and seemingly praying, which normally they do down here at the Western Wall compound.
We've seen several small groups like this of non-Muslim worshippers passing through the complex as Muslims continue to pray inside the mosque. This is where the friction is. This is where the controversy lies. Jordan is the custodian of the grounds, but that role is becoming increasingly symbolic, experts say, because it is Israel that controls the security checks at entry points and therefore access.
The mission is to reconquer the Temple Mount.
Raphael makes no secret of his ultimate goal, to rebuild the Jewish temples destroyed in biblical times.
The temple should be exactly over there, where there's a big gold mosque.
I would love to see the Dome of the Rock removed. In fact, Jews over the years have said we can take it down and reassemble it somewhere in Saudi Arabia if you like.
There's a routine call from a fringe Jewish group to try and take a lamb up to Temple Mount to slaughter to mark the holiday of Passover. That's seen as something that, if it were to happen, would be very inflammatory to the situations.
I would support the rebuilding of the temple today because it's going to happen and it's biblical.
Some Messianic Christians believe that for Christ to come down, the mosque has to be demolished because that's going to bring the end of time. And the same thing of some Messianic Jews, that they believe that it needs to be destroyed for the end of times to start.
There was a Hamas-led protest against Israel's actions. During the main prayer of the day, however, the scene was memorable for the numbers worshipping. The Muslim trust that runs the site said 150,000 people had come to pray at Islam's third holiest site.
Itamar Ben-Gvir caused outrage by declaring that Israel owned Jerusalem.
We have proven once again who are the owners of Jerusalem, and all the threats by Hamas will not help. We are the owners of Jerusalem and the entire land of Israel.
Itamar Ben-Gvir was surrounded by security forces as he toured the site. Israel's former Prime Minister Yair Lapid had warned such a visit will put lives in danger.
It's no accident that ministers have avoided visiting for many years. Members of the Knesset go, but ministers don't, especially not the minister in charge of the National Security Ministry. It'll be viewed by the world as breaking the status quo. It's an unnecessary risk.
I believe Israel is pushing the situation towards a new intifada, and I think the Palestinians will react with an uprising.
Literally what we've just witnessed here is another barrage of rockets. Look here, you see the tracer fire. The Iron Dome missiles come up to intercept missiles coming from Gaza. You'll hear the explosions. There's Iron Dome being fired up all around us right now. It's illuminating the sky here. The bangs of the Iron Dome intercepting rockets that are being fired from Gaza just a couple of miles away.
Hamas launched Operation Al-Aqsa Flood against Israel.
This infiltration came by land, by sea, and by air. And they say that this is an act of revenge for what they see as decades and decades of Israeli occupation and mistreatment of the Palestinian people. And they say that this is retaliation for what has been happening at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem.
هذه معركة القدس والأقصى وليست معركة غزة ومعركة الشعب الفلسطيني أو الأهل في غزة.
وأنا من هذه اللحظة أحب أن أنذر الاحتلال الصهيوني وقادته أن المسجد الأقصى والقدس خط أحمر. إن أردتم المزيد من الوقت لبقائكم فابتعدوا عن المسجد الأقصى والقدس. وقرار زوال دولتكم مرهون بتنفيذكم لمخططاتكم في المسجد الأقصى وفي القدس، ما لا يقل عن 10,000 استشهاد إذا ما تم المساس بالمسجد الأقصى.
وأيدينا على السلاح، أيدينا على الصواريخ، أيدينا على تفجير الباصات، أيدينا على العمليات الاستشهادية، أيدي شعبنا على الثورة العارمة.
كان الجهاد فرض عين على كل مسلم ومسلمة. اللهم عليك باليهود ومن والاهم، اللهم عليك بالأمريكان ومن والاهم، اللهم احصهم عددا واقتلهم بددا ولا تغادر منهم أحدا.
أما نحن هنا في غزة فلن يلقوا منا إلا البارود والنار، لن يجدوا منا إلا الشهادة، لن يجدوا منا إلا الموت والقتل.
لن ننسى فلسطين، لن ننسى القدس، لن ننسى الأقصى، لن ننسى فلسطين من البحر إلى النهر، فلسطين من البحر إلى النهر، ولن نعترف بإسرائيل.
הארץ שלנו, כל הארץ, כולה, כולל עזה, כולל הלבנון, כל הארץ המובטחת. אנחנו נחזור.
I believe eventually our borders will extend from Lebanon to the Great Desert, which is Saudi Arabia, and then from the Mediterranean to the Euphrates. So we have the Mediterranean behind us, the Kurds in front of us, Lebanon, which really needs the umbrella of protection of Israel. And then we're going to take, I believe we're going to take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai and purify those places.
אנחנו במלחמה, לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה. האויב ישלם מחיר שהוא לא ידע מותו.
אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים בהתאם.
You know, I'm very puzzled by the constant concern which the world is showing for the Palestinian people and is actually showing for these horrible, inhuman animals who have done the worst atrocities that this century has seen and the worst atrocities that Jews have suffered since the Holocaust.
עזה לא תחזור להיות מה שהייתה, וחמאס לא יהיה. חסל את הכל. ייקח זמן. זה ייקח יום, זה לא ייקח שבוע. ייקח שבועות ולא ייקח חודשים. אנחנו נגיע לכל תפקידים.
مع هيك وحوش بشرية رايحين نتعامل كيف لازم. إسرائيل فرضت إغلاق كامل على غزة ومش راح يكون في عندكم كهرباء ولا مي بس دمار. بدكم جهنم راح تحصلوا على جهنم.
إسرائيليون يعني وصفوا الفلسطينيين في غزة وصفوهم بأنهم حيوانات والأقل من حيوانات.
أنا لا أسويهم بالحيوانات لأن هذا تحقير للحيوانات. حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل.
We read every year before Purim, we read Parashat Zachor, where we are commanded by Hashem to remember that which Amalek did to us and to destroy them.
In the book of Exodus and also in the book of Deuteronomy, we speak about the mitzvah to destroy and to annihilate the nation of Amalek, to wipe out from among all the descendants of Esav, the descendants of Amalek, male and female, young and old. We should erase their memory and we should eradicate them from the face of the earth. This concept of eradicating the nation of Amalek is not only true for the first and the second holy temples, but it's also true for the third holy temple. Even after Mashiach comes, we will still have this mitzvah to remember what Amalek did and to eradicate them.
Amalek was a nation that is willing to kill himself as long as they kill Jews with them. That was their purpose. Today we find something similar to that is the Palestinian terrorists. They commit suicide, they'll kill themselves as long as they can kill 2, 3, 5 Jews. Do not have mercy on him. This is a divine instruction.
You shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget.
Do not have mercy on the children. Kill all their children also. Why? There's no difference between them and their children. In 10 years from now, these children will attack you on the way.
פעם ראשונה שאני מבין את הציווי של התורה תמחה את זכר עמלק, מעולל ועד יונק. אתה רואה את התינוק החמוד הזה? שקוראים לו אדולף? עוד כך וכך שנים הוא יהיה היטלר, יימח שמו.
You kill all men and all women, מעולל ועד יונק, even babies who breastfeed. Don't leave one survivor. Destroy the entire nation of Amalek with their animals, everything that is owned by them. No Jews is allowed to enjoy from it. Don't leave anything from this filthy nation.
תכסחו אותם כמה שיותר, שלא להשאיר מהם זכר. שלא הם, לא אמא שלהם, לא הילדה שלהם, לא התינוקות שלהם. אסור להם לחיות לחיות האלה. יש לך שכן ערבי, אתה לא תחכה שהוא יבוא אליך הביתה. תיכנס אליו הביתה ותירם.
תשמיד את עזה עכשיו! עכשיו! לא נותרת אבן על אבן בעזה. עזה הופכת לדרזדן, כן, שריפה מוחלטת. קלו כל הקיצים.
אין חפים מפשע, זה בדיוק שאתה אומר אוכלוסייה, אין אוכלוסייה. יש 2.5 מיליון טרוריסטים.
לא, אתה חושב שאנחנו יכולים להרוג מאות אלפי פלסטינים ברצועת עזה והדבר הזה יעבור?
וכל מי שנשאר שם נחשב כמחבל.
אני לא נרדם טוב בלי שאני רואה בתים קורסים בעזה. מה אני אעשה? עוד בתים, עוד מגדלים, שלא יהיה להם לאן לחזור.
There have been more wars fought over the Temple Mount and over the city of Jerusalem than any other place on earth. And it's not just because it's important strategically, because it's really not. It's not an economic power. It's not a military location necessarily, but it is so important spiritually. That's the reason there's so much conflict. And it's interesting that the world's last war, Armageddon, is going to be fought over Jerusalem and over the Temple Mount. While the Temple Mount is seen as the site where two faiths began, it is also seen as the place, according to all three monotheistic religions, where the world will end. According to Jewish tradition, the Temple Mount will be the site of the rebuilding of the Third Temple, which is believed to usher in the establishment of God's kingdom on earth. For Christians, the belief is that the Third Temple will be rebuilt on the Temple Mount, and that the Antichrist will enter the temple and declare himself to be God. In Islamic beliefs, the final judgment day will take place at Temple Mount. During this event, a chain will be extended from the Mount of Olives to the Temple Mount, and every person who has ever lived must walk it. Those who have done good deeds will cross the chain and go to heaven, while those who have done evil will fall off and be condemned for eternity. Well, I believe we're in the greatest time of prophetic fulfillment in the history of the entire world. We are in amazing territory. The prophecies are converging upon us from every side. And I'll just conclude with the words of Jesus. Be ye also ready, for in such an hour as you think not, your Lord doth come.
כובשים, מגרשים ומתיישבים. כובשים ומגרשים ומתיישבים. שמעת ביבי? כובשים ומגרשים ומתיישבים.